A lot of my friends think this is funny because I used to actually hate Muslims, and I was known as the Muslim hater because I just was really affected by the media, and I was very much into reading like magazines like Marie Claire and Elle magazine, and they always had an article about some poor Muslim woman who'd been beaten up by their husbands in Pakistan or wherever.
On one hand, the media is telling me, like showing us pictures of women being oppressed, people being violent and wars and stuff.
It's the mainstream media's sort of perception.
Absolutely negative. Obviously you have the media stance. You have the cultural stance from my parents.
I used to live in New Zealand, and there weren't many Muslims in New Zealand when I lived there. And I think as a result of that, the media was certainly nothing like we have here in Britain in terms of the anti-Islam feeling.
I had a lot of bigoted ideas and conceptions which were totally alien to Islam.
But what I found out was from all these sources that emanate this negativity towards Islam, they had no appropriate basis.
And I think that was definitely an advantage, because when I started to study Islam, there was no preconceived ideas that I had.
I used to look at all the problems in the world, and every time I switched on the TV there was, a bombing.
The basis was usually an egotistical one.
All the fighting in the world there was Muslims involved.
A hidden agenda one, in terms of like, they agree with something now, let me support you further by rejecting other things.
So I was associated violence and fighting and corruption all with Islam.
Then on the other hand, I used to see the people at university, and I used to find that they were doing a lot of stuff that Islam didn't permit. But I used to think that that was because Islam's too harsh, that it couldn't deal with people's problems and stuff like this.
I hadn't been approached for a majority of my life about Islam, so I didn't know anything about it.
Something very non-liberal, and Muslims very arrogant because they thought their religion is the best religion, and they were not willing to take from any other religion.
I had my life, they had theirs.
What I saw was that people were living split personalities, doing things they weren't supposed to be doing, and then going home and then being another person, for their parents basically.
It didn't relate to me, so therefore it was not worth taking any notice of.
My dad's family, a lot of them live in Iran, so seeing them, I didn't have a very good view of Islam at all.
It was a religion that Asian people followed, and it was something which was very strict on girls.
That's really the only view I had of it, that it was really restrictive, and all it wanted to do was stop you having fun and stop you going out. So I didn't have a very good view of Islam at all.
From the other perspective, I think now that Islam is so much in the media, it's a case that people are rejecting a very biased opinion, and they actually want to go and see what Islam's all about. So there is almost like a backlash in the sense that against this negative media, and they want to understand Islam and actually see what it has to offer.
One day you told me this life is a bridge. Don't build upon it, but cross over it. Always remember the end of the road. From Allah you've come, and to Him you return. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Forgive me for all that is past. Overlook all of my long heedlessness. With your remembrance let me be content. Let me behold you when comes the judgment. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. wayfarer only passing by. As if you're only passing by. Its joy and its sorrow will pass in the blinking of an eye. For when all illusion and all veiling shadows are no more, all that remains will be the glory and might of your Lord. Do not fear, no, and do not despair, in the mercy of Allah awaiting you there. Do not fear, for no will may compare to the will of Allah.
The Quran was revealed to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, at the age of 40 in the Arabian city of Mecca in the year 610 AD. This was to be a path, a way of life, distinct from all other ways of life. Islam called upon the people of Arabia, who were in the depth of misguidance, backwardness with widespread depraved practices, to believe in the oneness of Allah and the messengership of Muhammad, peace be upon him. To believe that there is a life in the hereafter, and hence to commit one's affairs to Allah. The progress that Islam brought to Arabia was phenomenal. Pre-Islamic Arabia had primitive tribal practices that kept people constantly at war and divided. They held no value for human life, whether it was men, women or children. However, Islam brought about a complete transformation in society, reformed the people and made them into one brotherhood, to the point that it eliminated tribal warfare and other forces of divisiveness. This short documentary will attempt to shed some light on why Islam appeals to people of diverse backgrounds. The interviews in the documentary will reveal why people embraced Islam.
I think before I embraced Islam, my viewpoint was like most of the other people in the West.
You know, basically have fun in life.
Which was, you know, get ahead.
Having some kind of status in this life.
Enjoy myself.
Get a good degree.
Have a good career.
Get a good job.
Getting a bit further up the career ladder than my parents.
Make lots of money.
Go to parties and have fun, and meet people and have fun, and go out and have fun. But you find most of the time when you do that, you're just miserable at the end of the night anyway.
And, you know, look after yourself, or look after number one.
In terms of belief, I didn't really believe in anything. I didn't have any religion that I followed. My dad's Shia Muslim, but he doesn't practice, and my mum is from Scotland. She doesn't practice. She's Christian, but she doesn't practice either.
My life was a bit messed up here. Talking about my life, like, for the first 2 years of my life, I lived with my mum and my dad, and my dad left my mum when I was 2 years old.
It's not as easy just to say, oh, I want a happy life, because life throws tests at you all the time.
My dad left my mum because he's gay.
But when I came across Islam, I've realised that, you know, there's a lot more to life than that.
Now that was harsh on my mum, you know what I mean? And for me, as a kid, obviously I didn't know what was happening.
I was just looking for the most entertainment I could find. You know, you're young, you know, you want anything to do with hype, anything to do with entertainment, anything to do with excitement.
My dad got HIV, and then basically my mum kept on telling me and my sister, like, preparing us that our dad was going to die.
I actually, in fact, went to New York looking for it, and it was just a surprise that I came across something totally different.
And when I got to 15, I found out that my mum had cancer.
when I adopted the concept of Islam, I understood that this myth called freedom did not exist, because we were affected by the social construct of society and social construct of the influentials. Now, in essence, also the concept of freedom was like, how do I know the implications of my actions on the rest of humanity?
Within 6 months or something, she passed away. So, because of these things that happened to me at a young age, it kind of set the view I had on life.
And that's why when I did adopt the basis of Islam, that concept had to go. Because now it wasn't freedom, it was the pleasure of my Creator.
I was an innocent kid before, hidden, kept away from all the bad things, because my mum brought me up quite well in that respect, yeah? But then when my mum passed away, I thought, F everything. I forgot everything, I didn't care about anything. Things went downhill for me. I left school at 15. You know, I started blazing every day, drinking alcohol. Yeah, I was in depression for 4 years. I would wake up in a prison cell the next morning. I didn't have a clue. I didn't have a t-shirt on me. You know, scratches all over me, and the police officers telling me I just been fighting some geezer.
For me, it was more of like, is this the truth? And that's the thing that actually gave me true tranquility. And especially when I became Muslim, the things that emanated from Islam in terms of its concepts, those were the things that gave me tranquility. For example, I did not see good or bad as dualities anymore. I saw them as, am I pleasing my Creator, yes or no, in this situation? And the pleasure of my Creator was the thing that was giving me tranquility.
One time I was younger, I was about 8 years old, yeah? And I was thinking about death. I was thinking, what's life about?
One thing which was missing, there was a certain emptiness in my life. An emptiness because I didn't know what life is all about. Why am I here? What's going to happen to me, after I die?
And I remember that night, I asked my mum and she couldn't answer me, and I cried. I was so scared, I couldn't sleep all night. Do you know what I mean? I couldn't think, what is the purpose of this life? When I came to Islam, these questions were answered. That question I had when I was 8 years old, that was answered.
Once I adopted the basis of Islam, and once I understood that Islam was the correct basis to have, then my whole psychological disposition changed. I'm not going to sit there and meditate and just have an altered state of consciousness, because that's fruitless. What I'm going to do is cognitively change my disposition in order to please my Creator.
By the year 623 AD, Islam was established as a state in the Arabian city of Medina, and this state had a constitution that was designed to organize the affairs of different peoples. Within 10 years of that state, the people of the Arabian Peninsula embraced Islam, and the Islamic way of life became dominant. In fact, Islam eventually appealed to millions globally, and it still continues to do so. Over the centuries, it spread to most parts of Africa, the Middle East, India, the Far East, Central Asia, China, the Caucasus, the Balkans, and Spain. Most of these areas were under the vast Islamic Caliphate state that spanned over 1,000 years. At present, there are an estimated 1.5 to 2 billion Muslims globally, including tens of millions in Europe and North America. Despite the absence of the Islamic Caliphate state, it is the fastest growing way of life here in Britain, as well as throughout the West. Once implemented in society, Islam achieved prosperity through trade, and scientific discoveries were made in the many fields such as science, architecture, mathematics, astronomy, and medicine. It is obviously beyond the scope of this short documentary to discuss these discoveries in great details. However, these facts are well documented even by Western academics.
When I was a Christian, I had certain doubts and questions in my mind. And one of those was the role of prophets. How was it that Isa, or Jesus, alayhi salam, was put in such an esteemed position, given a position even beyond his role? Whereas the other prophets, they didn't seem to fit into the picture. And so that troubled me.
It challenged my mind. It made me think.
Initially, I came from a background of a family that were what would you call thinkers.
And it wasn't really until I studied Islam that I could understand that all of the prophets and messengers had a particular calling, and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the last, as the seal of the prophets, was really confirming what had come before and completing the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that really completed the picture for me.
My dad always used to read many books on psychology, philosophy, etc. And obviously coming from a Greek background, it would be quite stereotypical to say that we were thinkers.
The most important question was, how do I know that this creed is the truth? How do I know that this book, the Quran, is from the Creator? How do I know that there is a Creator? All of these questions that I posed to another Muslim, he was able to answer it.
So in essence, when you look at the whole universe and you look at all matter around you, I noticed that something was similar.
All other beliefs, creeds, religions, they ask their followers to follow blindly, not to question. They're unable to give evidence which satisfies a thinking person.
Everything was finite and dependent. And I was looking at everything, even the universe. The sun was celestial bodies, they were finite and dependent.
Christianity would have been an easier step for me because my background was Christianity. I used to go to Sunday school. I knew about that. But Islam, what attracted me to Islam, and which is superior in my belief, is that here it's calling me to the worship of the Creator. It's calling me to the worship of the Creator and not the created.
What this meant to me was, what are they dependent on? If they're finite, therefore they cannot exist on their own. They need to rely on something else for existence.
Previously, my parents, they were Buddhists, so I was brought up in not a very strict Buddhist environment. But then, I did have questions about life, I used to think, is there a God or isn't there? But this is something that isn't really, covered in Buddhism. They believe in reincarnation. So these are things that I didn't have answers for.
So from a rational point of view, there is no other explanation but to say there is a creator. Now, I also had another family influence from the scientific angle that, science disproves the creator.
When I started having these questions, I used to push them out of my mind. And I said, well, you never get these answers. It would be a miracle if I did, yeah? And then what happened was that I got to a point where I looked into Buddhism a bit deeper, and I found that I still had so many questions, and a lot of things just seemed like myths and fairy tales to me. It didn't have any hard evidence. So I thought, with this thing, what am I going to do? What's going to happen to me when I die? I thought, I'm just going to look into loads of different religions. And what happened, I just thought, I'll look into Islam as well. And surprisingly, it really shocked me. I found that, Islam had the answers to these questions that I'd just dismissed for so long.
But then I said to myself, fine, we have to understand what is science. It's a method of study. Scientists, they'll look at gravity and they wouldn't care why it's there. They want to see how it affects the relationship with the other bodies in the universe.
And I took the understanding that I'm not going to attach myself to any belief because I can't tell that they're true. I'm just a believer in God.
The best thought to use, or the one that transcends anything else, is not the scientific thought. Because from the argument it's like, no one can see my brain. My brain cannot be smelt, touched, etc. So from the scientific point of view, people could say I don't have no brain at the moment. So it's quite humorous. But the situation is, the scientific method is finite in itself. So therefore it cannot be applied to something that's intangible. Only rational thought can do that.
That changed when my friends directed me to Islam and said, actually, Islam does provide you with the proof. And I was a bit baffled. I was like, no, there's no such thing, yeah? Because if there was a proof, then everybody would be that religion. Islam has a proof, because every human being needs a proof to believe in something. You can't just say something's true without proving it. You can't say, Christianity's true, Hinduism's true, Judaism's true, without showing people why.
So fine, now we have a creator. We understand this. There's a knocking on the door. Bang, bang.
Because I even went to the lengths of phoning a temple and saying, why is Hinduism true? Because I was so confused. And they didn't give me any solid answers. None of the other faiths could show me, apart from Islam.
I cannot assume what is behind the door. Speculation cannot work. Itself, the thing behind the door, must tell us who or what it is. So here we go to find out the expression of the Creator. Where is it? What is it?
It's not that, I thought praying every day, 5 times a day to your God is amazing, is the best thing. That's what attracts me.
So I got to the things that were the current status quo, if you like, on what the expression is. The Bible, the Buddhist scripts, etc. So I did quite a bit of an analysis on them. And I said to myself, fine, Buddhism is amazing, it's so nice, etc. But then I came to another thought. Is it the fruits? What does the fruits mean? So I was lucky enough to read some books on social constructionism.
Obviously, once I entered the folds of Islam, I saw the beauty of Islam. I saw the justice of Islam. Like the past, when I had friends, I didn't know the meaning of the word friends, and nor did they.
Now, what does social constructionism mean? It means basically that all our behaviors and our thoughts and our psychological disposition is dictated by the power structure and the influentials in society. So MTV wouldn't show what they're showing now 20 years ago, for example, or 10 years ago.
Islam tells you the most simple thing, what is friendship, yeah? How you do things for people, yeah? Sincerely, not for your own benefit, yeah? Not even because you want to make them happy and then they in return they're going to do something for you.
So I said to myself, fine, I cannot judge things by the fruits because my psychological disposition can change, but truth doesn't change. So I said, forget the fruits. Let's see the basis. Is this from the Creator in itself? I came to the Quran.
When I saw Islam, I saw the truth.
It was the only expression that lacked contradiction, that had no disparity, that had solutions for mankind, that had this miraculous nature, which a lot of Muslims call the linguistic miracle, in terms of there's 16 styles of Arabic literature in terms of poetry and prose, and the Quran cannot fit into those 16 styles. It's a unique style in itself, and no other poetry or prose, pre-Islam or post-Islam, fits into that structure.
When I saw the truth, I could reject the truth or accept it.
And that's so amazing. I mean, we have the grammar, the letters and the structure of Arabic, but we can't put it together in order to create even 3 lines of the Quran, which to me it's blew my mind away, and I was so amazed.
Whether there were parts of Islam that attracted me or I didn't like, for example, waking up every single day of my life till when I die before sunrise, that does not attract me to Islam, yeah? And if someone said that to me, I'd be thinking, nah man, do you know what I mean? Before I became a Muslim.
And not more, what I saw with the Quran is that it agreed with reality, with the correct sensation of reality. For example, when we come to science, there's a lot of scientific ayahs, verses in the Quran that I agree with current reality, whereas we just found this 50 years ago, but the Quran was expressed 1500 years ago.
I accepted it because it's the truth, but once you accept it and you see the true Islam, you think this is amazing because it's from God. I have not given up cannabis, I haven't given up alcohol, I haven't, stopped fighting and stopped socializing with women and wake up I don't do all of these things because I'm believing in something which might not be true. Yeah? I do all of these things and I will do them till I die because I know 100% without doubt it is not a theory, it is a fact that Islam is the truth and it can be proven.
So from that, I said I have to be a Muslim now. There's no choice. It's definite. Whether my psychology agrees with it or not, my mind says you have to be a Muslim. Your psychology could follow.
Don't think about the news, don't think about propaganda, don't think about politics, don't think about consequences, yeah, of accepting Islam. Think about what is truth and what is falsehood.
Many converts feel that it is this secular lifestyle that creates misery in Western societies, and more often than not, this lifestyle drives people to perpetrate inhumane crimes that have plagued the West. The ills of this society are numerous in nature and can range from rape, murder, paedophilia and suicide to pornography, gambling, robbery and theft. For example, recent UK Home Office statistics suggest that 80,000 women are involved in prostitution. Between 1989 and 1995, some 4,000 children were cautioned for offences related to prostitution. Organisations that help the survivors of childhood sexual abuse estimate that this is very common in the United Kingdom. If we widen the scope to the treatment of women and children by society, we see that problems are in fact widespread and not sporadic and isolated. In any given day in the United Kingdom, 7,000 women and children seek refuge in sheltering houses to avoid domestic violence. Last year, there were 104,050 domestic violent incidents in London alone. 1 in 20 women has been raped in the United Kingdom. According to the Home Office, over the last 6 years, there has been an increase of 82% in the rate of rape. The pornographic industry in the US is worth an incredible $8 billion per year. In the United Kingdom, an estimated figure of £5 million is generated from the sale of pornographic magazines alone.
I was quite a feminist, I'd say. I went to a girls' school, and there's very big feminist emotions that were going around there.
Everybody got invitations to go to the birthday party. All the Asian girls, they never used to go, and I just thought, oh, that's because they follow something different from us, and I suppose that continued, you know, through the media, like seeing the way that like women are treated. They have to cover, they have to walk behind their husbands and things like that.
Their fathers are making them do this, and then the headscarf was scary, but the niqab was, I just could not understand why you'd want to cover your face like that, and you know, these two eyes, and it just looked so frightening to somebody who was bothered about their looks and, you know, their hair and their, you know, their clothes, and then seeing some, you know, black ghost walking by. You sort of think, why would they want to do that? It's so hot, you know, in the summertime.
Looking into Islam, the first thing I did was I looked for about Muslim women in Islam, because I thought, oh, that's a weak point. There must be something wrong with this religion.
I used to read about them being beaten up and whatever, and also when I used to see them in the street, all dressed up and covered, which is quite ironic because that's what I'm doing now. But I used to see them all dressed up in black, and think, oh my God, their husbands must have oppressed them.
I find it's very sad to hear that the majority of like the propaganda is directed against the Muslim woman, in particular the Muslim woman's dress. And I find that when I started looking into Islam, that I found something, you know, the picture was so different from what is portrayed in the media. The fact that as, you know, as a woman, you know, Islam holds the woman in such a high honor in the society, how the woman as a mother and a wife, as a daughter, as a mother and wife is treated like a queen in her home.
Beforehand, you know, like from everybody, I used to feel that, you know, everybody wants a piece of you.
They say that they respect the woman, but you know that it's just they see the woman as just a sexual object.
So, you know, like friends and people that you know, they only hang around with you or spend time with you if they can, you know, like if you fit into their crowd, if you look right.
Before you become Muslim, all you care about is how good you look. And if you go outside you're not looking your best, then it's like, oh, you know, no, you don't get any attention and nobody wants to speak to you, nobody likes you, and you're just left behind and ignored a bit, and all your friends get all the attention because they're looking better than you do.
And the women try to attain that type of look as well, you know, to try and beautify themselves and make them and display themselves.
But in Islam it's not like that. You're respected for who you are, and you're respected for you know, your piety and your actions rather than just what you look like, or I don't know, how many parties you've been to that week, or how much gossip you know, stuff like that.
Whereas in Islam, you know, the woman's required to cover her beauty, and it's for herself and her husband and her immediate family, like her father and brother, to see.
Now, as a Muslim, and I've been a Muslim for 5 years, yeah, you know, like I'm comfortable with this role. In fact, I'm really happy, you know, that Islam has given us a definition for the roles of a man and a woman.
You know, I went to university and I wanted to be a career woman, so a mother and a wife, yes, I would be, but you know, I'd balance them all together, and I want to make it out there But I used to always say to my grandma, oh, I'll make my husband do my washing up and look after the kids, and I'll go to work, and she used to have a, you know, nightmare.
I used to find it hard that, you know, after like 5 years of studying at university, that I had like to think twice about, should I pursue my career in engineering, or should I, you know, think about having a family?
When I came to Islam, there's completely different, like it's all set out for you nice and clearly, you know, there's no confusion.
The background that I came from West Indian background, Jamaican background, and you know, there's a lot of issues to do with family, like there's a lot of broken families, dysfunctional families. There's a high ratio of homes which do not have fathers in the home, and this is all as a result of the fact that there's no guidance.
At first it was quite difficult, but then, as you know, once I got married, had children, and then, you know, like your natural instincts take over. I think every mother would say that, you know, like if they were working, that they would want to be at home with their children.
When I came across Islam and this issue of, you know, being a mother and a wife, it was something which it gave you such clear guidance on where you stand and how to uphold your role as a wife and as a mother, how to bring up your children, and what it means to be a wife, and what is the role of a husband, and what are the rights and the duty of the husband and wife. And I just found that like a great liberation for me, because I think that was a problem before, that people were doing things based on their own mind.
And that does give me comfort that when I get older, I won't be, you know, abandoned and left to rot in my old flat, you know, and my children not come and visit me, which is, unfortunately, I've had experience in that field where I've worked in old people's homes, where sons and daughters do not come and visit their elderly parents.
You never see anybody come and visit them, you never see anybody, and they have children, but the children must really come just at Christmas. Even
at Christmas, you know, they're not even sent any Christmas cards. And I remember working at Christmas with the elderly people and trying to make them feel a bit better. And it is really heartbreaking when you go into certain old people's homes, and all their life these people have looked after their children, and all they can speak about is their children, and their children can't even be bothered to come and visit them once a week. And then the saddest thing is when they die, the elderly people, then the children come and take the inheritance. And I do feel relieved that, you know, inshallah, this is not what's going to happen to me, that my children will always be there for me, because Islam requires them to do that. You know, the emphasis is on that, you know, paradise is in the feet of your mother. And when I first heard that as a Muslim, that made me cry, because it's so you know, emotional, that the responsibility a child has to the mother.
Coming to Islam is not just about, these are some of the beautiful outcomes of practicing Islam. It's not the reason why one takes on Islam. We take it on because it's the truth. And even if by the, you know, Allah forbid, the child becomes misguided, at the end of the day you know that you're following the truth, and that's the most important thing, and that you uphold your responsibility to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Recent years have experienced an extreme level of negative media portrayal of Islam and deliberate distortion and falsification of the Islamic way of life. Indeed, this negative depiction affects many in the general public and prevents sincere ideological debates. We propose Islam as an ideological alternative to liberal capitalism and urge our fellow human beings to research about Islam and find out for themselves about the true nature of Islam. Allah, the creator of this universe, says in the Quran, Alif Lam Ra, this is a book which we have revealed unto you, O Muhammad, in order that you might lead mankind out of darkness and into light, by their Lord's leave to the path of the Almighty, the owner of all
لا
praise.
إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير. There is no God but Allah. He is one, He has no partner. To Him dominion, to Him the praise. He brings life, death and life again. In His blessed hand is all goodness, and He has power over everything. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير. سبحان الله حمدا لله لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر ولله الحمد. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت بيده الخير وهو